Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Killing Eve. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, let's start off with Constantine's situation. Obviously, him waking up in the hospital. Obviously, he wants to get discharged, but they're like, no, we can't really let you do that. But he leaves anyway, not before taking a stop off to see Dasha. And it's kind of interesting, like, we finally get an answer because it got brought up earlier in the season, like that. Oh, like, why are you it's like, didn't you want to kill Dasha? And it's like, the reason why we find out is because Dasha tried to kill Villanelle. That's why Villanelle wanted to kill her to get back up. But she's like, oh, that was years ago. But also for her, it's like, I did that to prove to him she wasn't ready. And she wasn't. But he was like, no, she was ready. It's just the fact of the matter is you didn't like the fact is that she didn't follow your rules. And she's like, yeah, because you gave her no rules. Because when it came to Constantine, kind of let Villanelle kind of run free. But she's like, I'm very old school. You know, it's kind of her thought process behind it. But at the same time, Constantine's like, yeah, but you're mean and brutal. Because basically at the end of the day, she's like, you know, like, I'm trying to, it's interesting because like, it's almost like two different quote unquote parents teaching, like, you know, being like, oh, we both kind of went about this whole Villanelle thing, very interesting in different routes. And I think it's so interesting, you know, both of them kind of failed her in their own way, but it's so interesting to hear Constantine talk down to Dasha like he did a great job when it came to Villanelle either way. But it was just, you know, fascinating. And so she's like, yeah, but if you were really so against what I was doing, saying that was brutal and all that, why didn't you step in sooner? Like saying that at the end of the day, we both failed her, you know, so you're just as much to blame as me. And obviously Dasha starts like, you know, it's like having trouble breathing. And I was like, oh, and I was like, because I kept rewinding it because I was trying to see if he did something to her or was it just her wounds finally getting to her. I mean, to be fair, once again, Eve stepped on her chest, so it could be a thing of like her bones could be puncturing a lung or a heart or something, you know? But then like, it sounded like, oh, it sounded bad, but it's like, is she necessarily dead? Because I mean, the alarms were still beeping and stuff, but that's why I'm assuming she died, but in the way Constantine puts it later on that she's dead, so there's that. I actually forgot the actual beginning of the episode is Carolyn and Villanelle meeting. I was like, oh, now this is interesting. Villanelle's actually come to her for a job, and it's like, it's so interesting because Caroline talked about the fact that she offered Villanelle a job last season. Wasn't that last season? No, it was season 1, right? It's blurring together in my head now. I believe it was season 1, regardless of the fact that she turned down the job offer. So it's now interesting that she's come to Carolyn now asking like, oh no, I want to, you know, do the MI6 thing. At first I want to know what they have at the canteen and just, you know, Carolyn is like, well, they have this, and that. And just like Villanelle's like, okay, cool. But she's like, why? Because basically at this point, Villanelle has nothing. She quit her old job. And for her, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, so you want to come kill for MI6? She's like, no, I don't want to kill. And she's like, then what reason we have to take you? She's like, I can do other stuff, you know, like the whole spying stuff, putting on a mustache, you know, type of, which we know like the espionage side of things she could handle. She's very good at like, you know, creating personas and, you know, she's kind of a bit of a master of disguise and everything. So it's like, yeah, but it's like you were made for one purpose and that was to kill. And if you can't do that, what am I really getting from this situation? Villanelle's like, I can change. And I was like, well, sadly, I don't know if you can or not. I don't know. Like maybe current events kind of show that maybe you can. And, you know, I mean, argument could always be like some people like, people never change, you know, just, you know, but Carolyn doesn't, you know, because she's like, if you're no longer Villanelle, because the killer you are is who you are as Villanelle. If you take away Villanelle, then who are you? Oksana? What's left? Oksana? MI6 ain't going to be dealing with Oksana. So it's just kind of like left her in the wind. She's like, well, sorry, and bounces. And it's like, wow. So there's that. Then eventually you have Eve and, you know, Villanelle, you know, meeting up again is like, hey, and it's just like she's watching people dance and stuff like that. And she even talks about the fact is like, oh yeah, like the reason why she picked this place because it's like this is the first place, like my first ever kill in this country was at this place. It was like some high-ranking officer, and it's like, oh, he was a tango dancer or something like that. And she's like, I wonder if I hadn't done that, like what would I be right now? And then Eve's like, yeah, you know, if you weren't that, you would have basically made my life a lot easier because a lot of complications came about because her being who she is. So And so it's interesting, like, it's almost interesting because, like, Villanelle has gotten so existential because, like, the one thing she's always been good at, the one thing that it's always been kind of her driving force is kind of gone now. So she's kind of lost, like, who am I? Like, what am I going to do beyond this, you know? But nevertheless, it's a situation of, her and Eve start dancing too, and I love that they're both of them try to leave. And Eve's like, "Okay, am I leading or you?" And Villanelle's like, "I actually have no idea." And they're dancing. I'm like, "Oh, this is super adorable." It's like, "Oh, it's awesome. This is your first dance and everything." I was like, "That's so sweet." And then Villanelle's looking at an old couple. She's like, "Do you ever want that?" And Eve's like, "I used to. Why not anymore?" She's like, "Oh, come on." Like, the fact of the matter is, we'd never make it to that age. We'd consume each other before then. And Villanelle's like, honestly, that doesn't sound too bad. And it's like, in a twisted way, you can almost see, like, almost the romanticism of it. Like, we devoured each other, like I said, in a, very, like, macabre way you can look at it in a sense of romanticism. But then, like, Villanelle sees that the assassin shows up. So she's like, okay, you need to go. And so it's like, oh, Elaine wants to see you and everything. And I love that, like, and this is just something weird I picked up on. Jodie Comer doing that thing with her heels, I'm like, that had to take a lot of practice. Because for you to also make it look so damn natural too, like your hands behind your back, like being off balance like that takes a lot of coordination. I could not help but notice that. I had to rewind it because I was like, that's actually pretty damn impressive, like balancing on the back of your heels like that. And once again, you have to make it look so nonchalant too, like, just kind of like the playfulness that is, Villanelle. So I'm like, I don't know why. It was just like, I was so caught up on that. I was like, that's super impressive. That's amazing balance. I don't know how much time it took her to do that. Maybe it came easier said than, like, I whatever the case may be. I just thought it was interesting. And so Villanelle's asking her about her clothes and everything, and she's like, because I'm forgetting her name. Isn't it like Rihanna or something like that? But she wears clothes because it's like, oh, she was trained to be comfortable. And what was Villanelle says she was to be something. I forgot the word she used, and she's kind of points at her clothes. She's like, duh. That basically she was meant, because why she dresses more fabulous compared to her, where she's like dressed down and everything. And so it's interesting. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go meet Elaine. I was like, my mind immediately was like, oh, so we're gonna have that showdown between Villanelle and Elaine now. But then, like, Rihanna, like I said, this other assassin, because I'm legitimately forgetting her name now, and it was telling Villanelle, like, it'd be better if you just shut your mouth. It's like, honestly, I'm kind of prefer this whole thing to go down to the point, like, you want to walk away, you want to just throw us all away, I'm fine with it. That means I get to be your replacement and everything. I just want the journey there to be quiet. And then, Villanelle's like, sorry. And then she starts beating the living shit out of her and starts choking her. And I was like, is she going to go through it? I was like, she probably can't. And she starts screaming, and she can't. But the lady kind of got scared, and she was like, stop, I'm sorry. And then she's backing closer to the track. She's like, please don't. I was like, what's Villanelle going to do? I thought it was just going to be an accident situation. She's like, no. And then falls on the track. It's like, no, like, Villanelle straight up kicks her onto the tracks. She gets run over by the train, and they're like, oh, that's gnarly. Another thing in the episode is Carolyn and Geraldine, the whole situation of like, oh, here's kind of a list of kind of like all kind of the stuff I had, like, oh, here I judged you, held you to the standard of other, like, the more social standards of a mother and stuff like that. And the fact is, basically getting intimate with an ex-lover of yours, even if I didn't know he was, manipulating me. It's like, your loving daughter, Geraldine, she had written this whole thing down. She's like, and I love Carolyn being like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? And it's just like, your turn. And she picks up the book. I was like, okay, is she going to have like a long list of shit? Like, I was like, what's going to happen? And she opens it, it's blank. I was like, are you going to freeform this, and you're just going to like pretend like you wrote a whole bunch of stuff down? And she was just like, Geraldine, get out. And then it's like, wait, what? And basically she's like, oh yeah, like, say, basically kind of in her own way saying these very mean things. And then in the moment she's just like, oh, get out. And you're like, okay, I see what this is. You're doing a very roundabout way of trying to get your daughter to safety, because so many people around you have died, whether it be Kenny, now Mo. Like, obviously you've had enough of that, and the last thing you want is to lose your daughter. Like, yeah, your relationship isn't like the greatest and everything, but the fact of the matter is you still love her. And even Geraldine sees to it. She's like, all right, this isn't a real like, is it just because, Mo died investigating something because of you. Kenny, the fact of the matter is you haven't found Kenny's killer, going to the point that maybe, just maybe, he was just sad and super messed up and that he ended up killing himself. And then obviously Carolyn was like, yeah, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. I just want you to move out. You might not believe this, but the fact is I do love you and care about you. So, get out. She's like, I kind of say this, so it's just like I said, she handled things in her own way, like still kind of being herself because, like, once again, emotions aren't really something she's really good at. And obviously being very open with Geraldine about everything, so. But I love that she ends up showing up at Kenny's work, and everyone's there, and they got stuff to show him. I love that Bear went about a roundabout way of explaining things. It's like, oh yeah, like, what these are? It's the things that he eats. And she's like, I don't know, is that like some terrorist organization, some lone wolf, what? It's like sugar. He's like, no, they're more like not sweet, they're more like sour. And just Jamie had to go the clear stuff to be like, shut up, Bear, and get to it. Basically, someone kept stealing some of his, so he had actually set up a camera. He had never checked it until now. And it's like, it just revealed that the person who did it was Kenny, which I was kind of like, I figured it was Kenny, but regardless, I thought that was kind of known, but it was like, oh, it turns out the last person to see him was none other than Constantine. I was like, now that's fascinating. I was like, holy shit. Constantine killed him? I mean, to be fair, Carolyn was literally in the car with him and everything, but that was more so about the call. It was like, I think for her, it didn't even cross her mind to even think. Hell, he showed up at Kenny's wake and everything, so you're like, holy shit, like, that's mad messed up. Like, what? We'll get to that soon enough. Eve is picking up the thing that Constantine needed Villanelle to pick up because Villanelle couldn't do it, so she gave it Eve to find. And Eve goes there and she's like, oh, like, Chris, it's a place to place bets, and she's placing a bets based on the stuff, and she's like, you having a laugh or something? She's like, you taking a piss out of this? And she's like, wait, am I? And it's just like, and then she tries to bribe her at one point, and she's like, oh, you've never actually bribed anyone before. Hey, this lady over here is trying to bribe me. And it's like, it's actually kind of like super adorable, her trying to be like, oh, Eve's first bribe. I just thought that was kind of neat. And it's just like, oh, I'm here for Bruce. Oh, Bruce is an actual person, not a... Okay. And who should I say is looking for Bruce? Tolik? The shark. And I'm like, why did you do that? Like, I mean, to be fair, it's not like she's some, like mastermind, like, spy or whatever, but it's just the fact that you literally pick two random names off the board. Boom, boom. And it's like, okay. Meets with the dude, and she's like, yeah, wait, you're here with for the Russian? She's like, yeah. He's like, no, you're not. She's like, yes, I am. He's like, no, you're not. And and he's like, you're involved with a scary dude like that? She's like, I'm scary myself. And he's like, all right, the contents are yours. She happens to leave. Who'd she run into? None other than Constantine. And obviously he's stressing about, like, nah, give it to me. It's just a gift from my daughter. She's like, oh, well, if it's nothing special, I'll just throw it out. And he's like, no. And she's like, aha. And it's like, it's a barcode that's connected to a locker that has all the money. And he says, like, emergency toiletries as well. Obviously, like, he's getting stressed out. So she's like, oh, well, let me help you. And, at the same time, Villanelle shows up at Eve's work. And just everyone in there is freaking out. Because, like, and even Bear pointing out the fact that she likes that same snack that him and Kenny were eating, and it's like, oh, she likes it, and it's like, oh my god, isn't she great or something like that? And then Eve looks and see them all staring at, and Jamie's reluctantly approaching, and she's just kind of looking like, what the hell? Because Bear had also said, like, I wonder what she does with all the penises, and then she gets a call from Constantine. She's like, don't tell me you're calling me to tell me you're dead. And it's like, oh, Eve won't give me the thing. It's like, yeah, leave it with her, fine. And so Villanelle's about to leave and everything, and she's like, what do I do? You wonder what I do? The good ones, I let them, I think she said she lets them pickle. And the bad ones, you don't even want to know what I do to them. It's like, this was good, guys. This was a good time. Thanks for the good time. And just bounces. I'm like, yeah, you were literally in front of... To be lucky for you, she's not in a murdery mood right now. Like, obviously, maybe beforehand she would have, but obviously, since the whole not wanting to kill anymore, even though she killed, that was a different circumstance. But still, and it just kind of looked at mystified, like, wow, that just happened. So there's that. Then, Paul calls up Constantine about this, it's like, wait, you need to come in. I know you're the one stealing the money. There's a gunpoint to him. I'm like, oh, that's the Carolyn. So it's like, all right, Eve's going with them. And she's trying to help him. He's like, don't touch me. And she's like, who was that on the phone? He's like, don't talk or something like that. So they go there and they find the situation being what it is. And Carolyn's like, okay, Constantine, I want you to sit down. And she's like, no, beside Paul. And then like Villanelle shows up and she's like, should I get the, and Caroline's like, okay. So everyone's there and it's like, whoa, what's going on there? Having Villanelle and Eve sit down because it's like, if you're going to be here, you're going to have to shut your mouths. Sit down. And so it's obviously the whole back and forth. Paul being like, no, I'm not a part of this. I'm undercover the entire time. And I'm like, I was like, I was almost, there was a part of me that was almost like, there was a small part of me that's like, do I believe that? I mean, hell, because even Constantine's made it seem like, obviously his allegiances have always seemed like they were all over the place, but the entire time he's been working for the 12. But obviously it's like for Carolyn, it's like, you killed my boy. And it's like, wait, he killed Kenny? And even also like Villanelle finding out, wait, Paul, he's the 12? It's like, do you know Elaine? And he's like, Helene from blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, Elaine. But nevertheless, it's like, why don't you kill him? It's like, I don't care about Paul. He's not the one I have a personal vendetta against. It's you right now. And obviously he's pleading with his life and everything. He's saying, and we finally get the story like what happened. For him, he was trying to convince Kenny to work with him on, like, it's like, I was trying to keep him safe. Join the 12. But Kenny like was afraid of him and started backing up and fell. It's like, I tried to reach for him, but it was too late. So it's like, it was an accident that Kenny died. But it's a situation of, obviously she's like, get on your knees and everything. And there's this look on Villanelle's face, like as that gun is being pointed at him. Like she's excited the entire, and Eve's like covering herself with her jacket, like, oh my God. I love that reaction. And just Villanelle, you could just see the smile get bigger and bigger across her face. So I was like, oh, thought you kind of cared about Constantine. But, and then she does it. Well, it stops the moment Constantine's like, Villanelle, please do something. And then Carolyn pulls the trigger on Paul. Bam, right to the head. And it's like, oh. Eve's like, oh, what? And it's just like, leave before I change my mind. And obviously, Constantine's like, okay, come Villanelle. But she's like, no, I'm not going. He's like, why not? She's like, you're not my family. He's like, all right. And he doesn't fight it. And he's like, oh, you want to go? Fine, bouncing. He bounces, so he gets to go by himself. I guess, like, for him, it's like, well, less stress I have to deal with all your shenanigans and everything. But it's like, that's so... Because even Eve's like, why did you let, Constantine go? He's responsible for killing Kenny. She's like, no, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for killing Kenny. Because I guess for her, she blames herself as, like, I didn't do my job. Like, I'm inferring this, but I was like, I don't know whether she's internalized that as being like, oh, I didn't do enough as a mom or something, or whether she's coming at it from the thing of, like, I didn't do enough to protect my son. Like, I put him in that situation. Maybe, well, because there's also the whole conversation about, like, once again, that's supposed to be his dad, right? I mean, I wonder, was that a true conversation? Maybe it really was. Like, obviously, with everything going down, but it's like, maybe that really was a conversation they had on the phone. Because you don't know if that's Constantine lying, because obviously he does a lot of lying to save his ass. But I wonder, was that really the whole thing? So, Kenny wasn't sure if this was his dad or not. And he knows who Constantine is, so he didn't trust him. So, I don't know. Or maybe it's just because of everything. Because like that was also another angle to this too, was because obviously for Carolyn, she had an intimate relationship with him. And even he tried to say like, oh, I would never do that. And she's like, why? Why wouldn't you? And he's like, because. And she's like, don't tell me it's because you loved him. Because it's like, and in that moment, that's when it kind of, Villanelle was smiling for a little bit and she stopped. And I think that's for her, I think that's what made her decide not to go with him. Because it's like, I see the way you treat the people you quote unquote love. Like, Kenny kind of died because of you. Not really that well informed about him. I don't really know him that well, but still. But then also the whole Irina situation is like the way you treat me. It's like she sees how like he puts a lot of people to the wayside, and also like I think in her mind she treated herself for so long like he is family, but he's not. So Eve, ends up leaving. Obviously, Carolyn is, calling in. Yeah, suicide. Give me about 5 minutes. So it's like, okay, just gonna scrub this under the rug and everything. But it also got revealed because it's like, oh yeah, like Dasha's dead, and even Villanelle was like, wait, Dasha's dead. So obviously, Villanelle catches up with Eve, and it's such an interesting conversation that they have because it's that whole thing about who they are. Because, Villanelle at one point, it's like, oh, do you think of me as a monster? Which even Eve's like, I'm kind of like, we all have, like, it's not just you, we all have monsters. Just a lot of people have gotten good at very like much hiding theirs, but obviously Villanelle has kind of always been out in the open with her monster, you know. It was just this interesting intimate moment of them talking, you know, and it's just like they've never actually, like, this was just like the most calm intimate moment they've really had, because usually their intimate moments end with them, obviously their first intimate moment, she stabbed her, Eve stabbed, Villanelle. Next time, Villanelle ended up shooting Eve. Last time they had their moment, like, they headbutted. But then they were obviously dancing before, but that got interrupted. So this was just like a nothing else going on in that moment type of just them talking. And for Eve, it's like she felt like she used to be like them. You know, it's just like, oh, I had this life. You know, I was married, I had a house, I had chicken. You know, I was happy. But, you know, it's like, it's a thing of like, she feels like the monster that's in her kind of like, because Villanelle's like, oh, I think the monster in me kind of like makes the monster in you grow, and you know, like Eve couldn't help but kind of agree. And so it's a situation of, obviously Villanelle kind of wants to walk away. Obviously it's not going to be the easiest thing to walk away from the 12. We'll see. But I just thought that was just kind of interesting for her. She doesn't want to do the whole killing thing anymore. And obviously for Eve, she just doesn't want, you know, it's like, how do I kind of move past, like, how do I kind of just like move past like everything? Because I just don't want this anymore, because it's just like, this whole cat and mouse thing they've had for so long, and it's just kind of like, it's interesting to see it kind of almost come to a head in this moment. And so Villanelle's like, oh no, like, let's face each other, turn around. And I was kind of heartbroken, because I was like, oh, you're just gonna have to, like, the only way to kind of end this for both of you is to walk away, because what did she say last episode? It's like, we need to stop meeting like this. It's not good for either one of us, because once again, they feed off of each other. What did Eve say earlier? Like, we'd never make it to that age. We'd consume each other. So it's like, just keep walking and don't look back. And they keep walking. I was like, are they legitimately not going to look back? I was like, oh, that kind of sucked. But they both stop, and I'm like, oh. Eve turns around first, and then Villanelle turns around and looks at her, and they both just staring there. And I'm like, and that's the end. So it's like, holy shit, like, so what does this look like going forward? You know, it's like, you know, next time we catch up with you, are you two going to be together, like, intimately like that, or are you just going to be traveling together? What about the 12? Because I'm sure they're not just going to let Villanelle walk away, especially the whole Elaine thing of like, oh, I could kill you before you kill me thing. I'm like, oh, that's going to turn into something, especially if Villanelle's not doing the whole killing thing. It's like, well, what happens to her? What happens to Eve? Like, what do they do going forward? It's actually another interesting element too, like, characters that always work with them, like Eve and Carolyn, you never see them again. So for example, like, her friend in season 1, never saw her after that. Home dude and the lady she was also working with last season, didn't see them again. So it's just like, so probably everyone from Kenny's job probably won't see them again going forward. Maybe not. It depends on how they do it, but it usually is like your core cast is the only thing that constantly stays the same. That's Constantine, Villanelle, Carolyn, and Eve. So I'm curious, you know, with this whole Villanelle thing of no killing thing, well, it stands, you know, what happens to Constantine? Like, obviously, he's like, oh, I'm gonna send for Arena. It's like, will he actually do that? Is the 12 eventually gonna catch up to him and kill him anyway? A lot of questions like that. Like, I'm just so curious to see what direction they would take this. Killing Eve is coming back for a 4th season, and like I said, I'm so curious to see where things kind of end. Like, I feel like, out of comparison to the previous 2 endings for their stories, like, this is the most positive. Like I said, it just came about. It's like the most like, oh, neither one of us is bleeding or practically dying at this point. So I'm curious to see, like, when it's all said and done, will it be a thing of, like I said, will they be traveling together, like fighting against the 12? Will, you know, she help her track down, like, to help, because Eve wants to leave the whole thing behind, much like Villanelle, but will that last? Because that obsession is kind of there in Eve, you know, but maybe that obsession kind of gets satisfied with Villanelle, but maybe it's a thing of like, oh, like, you've had this exciting relationship for so long, but the moment things kind of get a little docile, like, yeah, Villanelle might be kind of like quirky like she normally is, which is a weird way to describe Villanelle, but the fact is, maybe because she's not the murdery version of herself anymore, like, maybe that love kind of dies down a little bit with how Eve sees her. Like I said, that also depends on if even they're together. Maybe they look back at each other, but they ended up still going their separate ways. What the hell is Carolyn going to do? She kicked her daughter out. It's like, what's going to, like, is she going to go back to, like, you know, treating MI6 of like, oh, I guess she's going to be, I mean, is she going to get a new boss? Is she going to take over things? Because the big thing I didn't even talk about was like, Carolyn was like, oh yeah, let's give up on going after 12. It's like, it's kind of pointless. Hell, I recognize it. Villanelle recognizes it. That organization is just too powerful for us to take down. So it's like, maybe Eve will look at that as a challenge. Maybe, like I said, maybe she'll start off being like, hey, everything's, you know, okay, I'm not going after them. Then something's going to trigger it in her to try and go after them. Who knows? Like I said, it could just easily be like, oh, they've come after you, so they've kind of started a war. Also begs the question, are we going to ever see Nico again? It's like, yeah, you know, it's how would he react knowing that Villanelle is with, well, I mean, obviously he doesn't care enough about Eve anymore anyway, so I'm like, I don't know. Like I said, I'm so curious to see what they do with season 4. I'm very excited to find out what they do. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.